When I was a young chap, I used to walk around and make different handkerchiefs into the Ninja Turtles masks so that I would be a Ninja Turtle. It was very much something that I gravitated to. All of the turtles were extremely corresponding to the type of innovation that I wanted to provide to society at that time. They were all pretty innovative, as far as I could tell, as far as people and culture and being ninjas that had good values, and they were all pretty cool in terms of skills. And one thing that I find a little bit interesting is that after all this time, being a kid and modeling their style and their skills as a young child and a young lad, now it's interesting that we're crossing over to the other side, and now we are all gaining the potential to conceptually become the villain from that TV show, at least the cartoon TV show, and pretty much the main aspect of the negative character from that TV show is Krang from the Ninja Turtles. He, in essence, is like something that we've been able to become nowadays. This is the day and age that we're in these days. And it's obviously kind of a joke. Welcome to the news, welcome to the news, welcome to the news, welcome to the news, welcome to the news. Yeah, you're welcome to the news. So, yeah, that TV show, Ninja Turtles, was obviously something that a lot of people are able to relate to. It's a lot of fun. It's quite an interesting scene. It's quite an interesting dynamic. It's quite an interesting show. And it's quite fun to watch and encounter that experience. But the twist of turns after all this time in life is that we are now all able to become the villain character that was from that TV show. And what I mean by that is that we all basically by now in 2025 are able to live like we are the brains within the suit that Krang was able to wear in that show where he walked around and he was just the brain and he was controlling the body, but it was like two people in that body that in essence was from that TV show. But in this instance, an example, it's just an example, it's just a correlation and a correspondence of how basically it's almost like that, almost like Ray Kurzweil in his prediction, like we're able to live forever in the future. But it's like now, and it's also kind of a joke because we also can't live in an immortal sense, but it's also like an interesting thing to make this parallel and this transposition of what I'm talking about with Krang, the supervillain within the Ninja Turtles show, is because we have the ability almost to have like a suit around us, like with all the artificial intelligence going on around us. We have so many different tools and things that are doing things for us. It's almost like we get the ability to just live as a brain, and there's so many things that can like provide us with services and such things, almost to the extent where we're able to be nourished and fed on almost every fashion and every facet, and ultimately the technology is around us in essence if we wanted it to, so that we could plug directly into like transformer type bodies if we absolutely needed to necessarily, because the technology with robots is present at the current time, and we can pipe right into that. And Elon Musk has also made Neuralink, so therefore we can connect our brains to the computers directly already, so therefore we have the ability to connect at the current time to computers with our brains, and the full functionality to be able to control computers and robots and such things with our brain in of itself is proven at the current time. So therefore, if you had robots that could latch on to every aspect of your human appendages at the current time, that you therefore are able to become a robot at the current time just by the inference of the technology that's out now. So therefore everybody's able to be like Krang as of now. It's not to say that everybody's villains, but it's just a coincidence that he happened to have that suit, and every human right now in a conceptual sense is able to take on that conceptual process and able to take on the powers in that conceptual suit, in that conceptual facilitated TV show that foreshadowed what his capabilities were able to facilitate in that Krang character, because he also had different costumes and different things, like where he had little feet and a little mini robot that was coming out of his legs, like it was a chicken, like he was the size of a chicken basically, and he had little robot legs, so he could run around like the size of a chicken, also in his little brain, in his brain body, within like a little glass vessel that allowed him with little chicken legs to run around as well. But in essence, he had that full body suit where he was part of a man, and a man wore him in his stomach, and somehow he was able to thrive and live from that inside of the man's brain. Inside of the stomach of another man, basically. But it's also hard to tell if that stomach was actually incubating his life, and actually giving him nourishment so that he was able to live. And that's the kind of suit that I'm talking about, that we all have the ability to kind of live in right now. We don't have the ability to live forever, and we don't have the ability to use immortality, unfortunately, at the current time. But hopefully we'll get there at some time with Ray Kurzweil's help and a lot of new technology, I guess. But it's not even to talk about immortality. It's more so to talk about the nature of all these different items that we can attach to each other, including businesses that we can attach to ourselves. We can attach nourishment. We can attach food directly to a suit that was like a Transformer suit that we can wear into our body. That Transformer suit could walk us around if we necessarily needed to. So it's not just like we have robots around us, but we can merge with the robots necessarily at the current time as well. And that is also just very interesting how we've got the digital and the physical aspect where we can literally merge with so many ways of technology that are happening around us right now. And we can make businesses around us, and we can make robots, and we can make robots that can do cleaning and welding and such things. And that's one thing that I have an interest in doing, as well as trying to use a robot to weld a few different chassis, if possible, to make some nifty cars and gadgets and things like that, I suppose. And that's part of how this concept came about, because it seems so close and yet kind of far, because I just don't have the program capabilities or the abilities to touch those types of programs right now. But I'm hoping that with a little more further partnering and partnerships and a little more consulting and conceptualizations, that it's possible to connect with those tools. Oh, certainly. And this is also something that was brought about from talking to a friend who's also a family member, and in shouting it out and calling it out. That was also, it kind of became like a logo. It's like this interesting situation, because we used to watch Ninja Turtles back in the day as kids, so it kind of became this logo between us for the conceptualization and the visualization of being able to develop old cartoons and new cartoons out of that old dynamic, and using that cartoon network scenario to be able to develop cartoons as sort of like a superpower, to be able to make not like logos among other people. That's what I was talking about yesterday night, to be able to try to have all the paradigms in the world become logos, to help try to develop a whole bunch of philanthropy energy in the world, but also to be able to develop this dynamic between me and this person who's kind of a family member-ish situation that happened to watch cartoons with me back in the day. And that dynamic is empowering, because it empowers the instance and the essence and the nature of endlessness for powering and becoming powerful and empowered by developing powers that happen to be within cartoons back in the day, so that those powers within cartoons back in the day are able to connect with us now. And it's not like developing a logo around things like I was talking about last night, but it's able to leverage the powers of cartoons and the power of powering up, like within video games and cartoons. At the same time, it's also it's the opposite of talking about developing like an anime character from within that is birthed with it from within. It's going from the outside, it's going from the external to develop external powers, just using external influences and external media to be able to connect on those things, to be able to develop pipelines of energy through existing media and such things, to be able to collaborate those medias and develop your own powers through AI technologies and such things. And that is also the future, I believe, to be able to also just contain existing energies from external sources and develop new characterizations and new powers and such things, which is very much like from the movies indeed. But this is sort of an element of using imagination to be able to compile and collaborate with existing technologies to develop your own technologies, almost by accident, by using media and characterization collaborations to then therefore develop processes that can benefit your own life, and also make a shared game that is sharing in a transactional game that is back and forth of unique shared elements and pipelines from past, present, and future influences that has the ability to elaborate on friendships and build upon friendships and correlating energies to that, so that you're able to, in essence, make a new collaborative technology. You're actually able to birth new technology almost by accident, by conceptualization in friendship, and conceptualization in experiencing kid-like situations and things like that, and building upon new products from kid-like situations, being possible to grow upon them in terms of technology and real-life technology, and collaborating on similarities from those experiences. Oh yeah. Just like before, a couple days ago, I was talking about the M3 is something that is in a podcast a couple days ago, which is it would be necessary to search for the exact day, but M3 stands for 3 things to be able to develop monetary energy, but no, it's momentum, and then monetary, yes, energy, tennis balls. So it's monetary energy, tennis balls. It's marketing, tennis balls. So it's money, tennis balls, and then marketing, tennis balls, and then momentum is the third thing. So it's money, marketing, and momentum. Those are the three things. The three M's, M3. That's what they stand for. But now we're adding AI to that. So we're adding basically AI to that. The M3, which stands for it's a symbol. It's basically a symbol. It's a symbolization for holding money in one hand, holding marketing in the other hand, as two ways to be able to grow assets, grow wealth, and then throwing both of those items into momentum rivers. Both of those items as tennis balls, throwing them into momentum rivers, like a visualization, like you're visualizing yourself, one arm with holding tennis balls, one color that it stands for marketing, tennis balls, and you continue to throw them into momentum rivers, so they're continuing to go up in value. And then the other hand, with money tennis balls, they're able to also throw them in a continuous sense into money momentum rivers, so that those are continuing to increase in value as well, and continuous assets, and you're continuing to build an asset mindset. But the third layer to that is now AI. We're adding AI, so it's M3 AI, M3 AI, M3 AI. Oh yeah, we have M3 AI. And the last little dynamic to be able to touch upon today is another family member. So we're talking about trying to make logos, like I was talking about yesterday, but we're trying to actively make logos. And yeah, the Transformer logo is in the first one that I talked about with a certain first family member with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles situation, because you're able to take your own Transformer and you're able to attach it to your body, and so that's like the Transformer logo. Oh yeah, I guess so. But it's a unique combination of the Transformer logo and the Krang character from the Ninja Turtles show, and combining those things and those elements and using that old school process and having fun like kids to be able to collaborate and make new technology by combining the Krang suit and the Transformer suit. So that's the logo for the first dynamic that I was just mentioning, and there is a second dynamic with like a parental figure, in essence, to be able to birth a new type of birthing process, which is the logo birthing process in of itself. That birthing process as in itself, as well as a wheel birthing process. So the wheel in this instance is the wheel of a ship. It's the wheel of a ship that is able to birth the process of directing a ship. So we're able to direct a ship that is indicative of a brand that has to do with it's being directed in the direction of being able to not only birth new logos like from orbs and things, like having the ability to have the ship be able to birth new orbs, but it's like, and that's the purpose of the ship, directional steering wheel. In essence, the steering wheel is within the orb. For the first orb, being the first logo that's being developed within and among us is the steering wheel of a ship, basically in the middle of it, and that is indicative of being able to change the direction of this ship at any given time. That is the ship that's holding on to the two people in the party, that has to do with the direction that this specific ship is riding in, and that ability to be able to change directions and be malleable. That's what that is standing for, because being able to pivot, that's the first logo, and then obviously being able to pivot and change the logo is what that is a symbol for, is being able to change the direction of that logo and being able to pivot and change and update that direction of that logo. And that's one of the superpowers of that logo, is being able to change itself and update itself, because that's a necessity, because the story and the paradigm of that is going to continue to change, as mentioned before. But in this specific instance, with a familial dynamic that is encased within this specific logo situation that's also just been birthed in the yesterday time, in essence, is that it is, in essence, to be able to develop the ship, and a ship that's in of itself, that's combining two businesses that are foundational and fundamental, obviously within, from the very foundational and fundamental, apparent and obvious sense, thing that if you have familial relations, that there's blood relations, there's DNA, in essence, then that corresponds and correlates to a foundational birth sense, from like going from before existence to then after existence. And then in addition to that, being able to correlate businesses above ground, after life has existed, to be able to use life to be able to combine businesses, in essence, and business powers and business powerings, just like talking about the first one. We're talking about kidship and cartoonship as kids, and that coming up and growing up, and that being relevant in the later life, like in the first example of the first logo that I mentioned a couple minutes ago. And now in this later life example, being able to merge new later life businesses like Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios, and the familial business that I was referring to, that also is contained within this ship, that's symbolic of the second logo that's been made within this podcast that is indicative of the steering wheel, basically the steering wheel within the podcast, within the logo. And this is indicative of being able to pivot and being able to change that logo, because that will be able to now start to be a new part of the podcast, and the direction that the podcast is being able to encompass going forward is that ship, and the direction that ship is turning and spinning in. Almost these two logos could perhaps be making appearances, but basically the second logo with the steering wheel and the ship is the one that would be making a consistent podcast appearance going forward. That is indicative of a ship, and it contains Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios, as well as a different combination of energy that is on the ship to be able to help to steer to different pastures, in essence. And that's what the steering wheel is a representation of, so that has the ability to actually get us to a different space that is originally intended, because our energies are sort of combining and swirling for the interest and the purpose of evolution, and then re-evolution, to be able to make a recycling energy and factor that is within the company energy, but then also taking DNA energy and going pre-life and then post-life, and then combining and trying to jump back and forth between the pre-life existence, going to the universe before pre-life existed, and trying to change dimensions in that fashion. We're trying to jump back in between pre-existence and pre-existence universe, and then post-existence universe, which is now, because I exist now, I suppose. And so with that in mind, we're trying to combine that into a ship, and we're going to try to combine different energies and also business plans and business models from more so into the real estate industry, to be able to continue to develop the Dinky Tehc and Change4Games Studios brand, as well as pivot with the brand of the ship, and the ship being a model in the nature of the continued pivots that are meant to occur as a ship that is occurring, to be able to hoist and hold and halter and facilitate future turns that have to do with also slow turns and such things, because that's how ships turn. And so we're going to try to navigate and be able to facilitate future turns that also is facilitating weather that has to do with being able to be a bat dog, a black lab dog bat situation that is flying above, to also be able to facilitate weather from the ground and then also from above. Then the ship is able to hopefully help correspond with being able to fly in the most effective fashion, to be able to drop and farm logo farming around the whole world, so that we can try to propagate positive logos and positive philanthropic energy in the ice rink grid that's in the sky, and we're able to communicate back and forth from the sea to up in the sky to the ice rink that's in the sky, so that all the liquid from all the sea and all the oceans and all the world is able to transmit its energy also within and up to and upwards to, through precipitation, evaporation, into the global giving games, philanthropy energy, ice rink, philanthropy energy, global grid that's in the sky, the global grid, the philanthropic energy, global electricity grid that's in the sky, to be able to continue to propagate philanthropic energy around the whole world on a consistent basis, and hopefully a day-to-day basis going forward, for always more going forward from here on out. Thanks again, Dinky Tehc. Bye. Peace. Bye.